I lost 40 pounds in 1 year and I've kept it off ever since. My health has significantly improved. I've reversed chronic disease. I had very severe gout attacks for many years. Hey folks, Michael Anthony here with another episode on the Exceptional Life Podcast. Woo! Yeah, I always get so excited doing another video. I don't know what it is. It's just fun. It's exciting. And I enjoy sharing the things I've learned and my knowledge and insight with you. So perhaps you can live an exceptional life as well. So this video is probably going to be a long one. And so let me just preface by saying that we're going to be talking about nutrition and health, specifically my journey over the last decade and how I went from not knowing anything about nutrition, or at least I thought I knew a lot about nutrition. Over the last decade, I really had some eye-opening experiences, and I've completely transformed my health through self-education, working with some proactive doctors. I did it pretty much all on my own, in my own self-education, which I'm going to suggest that you do. Self-education is so powerful. And if higher education promoted and taught self-education, then they would be out of business, right? So I'm going to bullet point and summarize what this video is going to be about in the beginning here, so you can determine if it's worth watching, because it's probably going to be a long one. I'm going to ramble on, but my goal is to share my knowledge, my insight that I've learned over the last decade, and talk to you about my massive transformations in health and disease and well-being. Perhaps and mindset. You can find some value and insight from it, so you can become an ambassador of your life. You can become an expert in your own health. So none of this information should be construed as medical advice. I'm not an expert. I'm just a regular guy who took life by the horns and became an ambassador of my life, became an expert on my own health and well-being. And I want you to do the same, because all of you have the power to do it. All right, just to summarize what this video is going to be about, some of the key things I'm going to talk about. Well, first of all, I lost 40 pounds in 1 year, and I've kept it off ever since. I lost it a couple years ago, and I've kept it off ever since. And I continue to improve my metabolic health as we go on. But that's such a key, because a lot of people do certain diets or lifestyle changes. They lose weight, they start to feel better, and then they relapse and they go back to the way they were. They put weight back on. They have nutritional deficiencies. So there's a lot of that going on out there, and people are really confused about what a proper human diet is, what proper nutrition is, what real health is all about. And my health has significantly improved. I've reversed chronic disease. I had very severe gout attacks for many years. And I'll tell you what, if you're not familiar with it, I hope you never are, because it is a terrible condition to have. So I'm 40 years old now, and when I first started to experience gout, I think it was somewhere around 2013, 2014. It's 2020 now. In fact, it's December 30th, 2020, almost 2021. And for several years, I experienced the worst pain I've ever had in my life, to the point where I was on crutches. There was times where so many joints were affected, and I was in so much severe pain that I couldn't move. I couldn't even lay in a bed with a sheet over my feet. I mean, the sheet just laying on top of my feet were causing severe pain. That's how bad it was. And there was times where I had to drag myself across the floor just to get to the bathroom. I mean, it was terrible. And I haven't really shared that with a lot of people, because I was always the type of guy not to show weakness. I didn't want people to think I was unhealthy. A lot of people close to me knew about my severe gout attacks, but I tried to keep it quiet, because I felt shameful about it. I felt like a lot of people always looked at me like, oh, this guy knows a lot about health and fitness and different things like that. He's done really good in his career. He's got his shit together. But when it came to health, a lot of people didn't realize how much I was going through. And gout was very, very terrible. And so I hope none of you have ever experienced that. If you have, then definitely watch this video, because I'm going to talk to you how I've completely eliminated it. I've been gout-free for over a year now. No gout attacks whatsoever. And I used to have them every couple months. I mean, I was lucky if I went more than 2 months without a gout attack. And when they happen, I was lucky if they lasted 1 or 2 weeks. I mean, when I had a gout attack, they were severe. And there was times where they would last for multiple months, 2-3 months at a time. I mean, it was terrible. And I did it, and I eliminated gout without any prescription drugs. I just never believed in taking prescription drugs to alleviate symptoms. I was always interested in root cause and why it was happening and how to eliminate it altogether. I just never believed in supporting, the drug industry with prescription drugs just to do a quick fix. Now, I took things like ibuprofen and stuff because the pain was so severe, but I just want to point out that I did it without drugs or surgery or anything like that. And it's easy to go into drugs or surgery, especially because a lot of conventional doctors will tell you to do that. But like I said, this is not medical advice, so I'm just telling you what I've done and how I've done it, and maybe you'll find some insight and value and make your own decisions. But I eliminated gout completely, lost 40 pounds, have kept it off. My mood, my vitality, my vibrancy, my energy have increased phenomenally well. I pop up out of bed very happy. And a lot of that too was through mindset training, mindfulness, behavior change, which I talk a lot about that in other videos. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but I am going to mention during the course of this video on some of those topics because they integrate with just the holistic look at your life and how to change your lifestyle for the better. But that's going a little bit off topic because this video is about nutrition and my health and my journey. And we're going to go from that perspective. So in addition to that, I've also lowered my blood pressure. I had high blood pressure, pre-diabetic type numbers with my blood work, lowered and reversed inflammatory markers. I even had just regular arthritis on top of the gout attacks that I had. I would get lots of random aches and pains, shoulder, knee, back, just different joints in my fingers, stuff like that. And it's sad because a lot of people have arthritis. They don't realize how much a role diet, lifestyle, and even mindset play in inflammation in the body, the immune system, and how the body's functioning as a whole. So eliminated all that stuff. I don't have any random aches and pains anymore. In fact, it's pretty amazing. At 40 years old, I am younger and more healthy and more vibrant than I was at 30 years old. Even in my late 20s. I mean, I am more vibrant. I'm in a better mindset. I feel incredible. And I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu 3-4 times a week, and I don't need as much time to recover. Back when I was like 30 years old in training like that, it would take me days to recover, and I didn't understand why people could recover and train every day. And so I had a telemarketer calling on my phone. I don't know if you heard that vibrating, but anyway, so even my recovery, my ability to recover has improved tremendously. And that goes against common beliefs. A lot of people think as you age, you kind of degenerate, and in maybe some ways you do, but I'll tell you what, I feel healthier than I've ever felt. And maybe I got a little bit of gray hair, right? Maybe I have a little bit of gray hair there. Again, that's off topic, which I tend to do. So the point is, I'm going to talk about my journey. And if you can relate with any of those conditions that I had, or you can relate with how you feel, maybe you're feeling old and sick and unhealthy, overweight, maybe you're diabetic, maybe you're full of stress, maybe you're maybe you have hypertension, right? Arthritis, any of that, gout. Just about every condition out there, like 99% of all these conditions are tied to inflammation. And inflammation is going to be triggered by nutrition, your diet, your lifestyle choices, and even how you think affects your body, your inflammation, your immune system. So if any of that sounds interesting, then stick with me. We're going to go through my journey. So let's go ahead and kick that off. Okay, thanks for sticking with me on that introduction, and let's go ahead and talk about this a little more. So I gave you some insight on some of the conditions I was faced with. So I weighed 265 pounds several years ago. I was coming down with gout, aches and pains, and just felt like crap, felt unhealthy, thought I understood nutrition, and didn't even really put two and two together when it comes to nutrition and health and inflammation. A lot of people still don't realize that disease and sickness, a lot of it can be attributed to your lifestyle choices, such as what you put in your mouth, right? As well as how you think. So when it comes to nutrition, I pretty much ate the standard American diet. You know, when I was a teenager and a kid, I was always super athletic and super skinny, and I always looked good and felt good. I played sports. I was athletically gifted. I was involved in a lot of different activities and never felt sick or anything, but I ate anything I wanted and everything I wanted. I mean, I ate it all. I ate lots of meat and vegetables and fruits, but I also ate lots of processed junk and chips and soda and fried stuff. I had another telemarketer call. I would have my phone off typically, but I'm using it connected to my GoPro here so I can see myself on there in case I go off camera or out of the shot. So that's why I have it on. And I'm getting these telemarketers calling during my video, and they're interrupting me. Such is life. So anyway, so as a child and a teenager, I ate anything and everything I wanted, never put on any weight. I had like 0% body fat, and I was very athletic and felt great. Then in my 20s, all of a sudden, you know, I was drinking. I was drinking every weekend. Me and my buddies would drink all the time. So lots of drinking, still eating the same way, was still active. I was still very active and, you know, doing martial arts and running and hiking and different things like that. And, but I started to pack on the pounds, right? I started to put on all this weight. I was also lifting weights a lot too, and I was trying to bulk up. So I was eating even more, thinking that I needed more calories, I needed more protein and protein shakes, and I was just putting all sorts of shit into my body. And I did. I put on a bunch of weight, and I still looked good, right? Like I still looked pretty good. I was like 200 pounds, still pretty lean. Like I was under 20% body fat. I was lean, felt good, looked really good, and all was well. And then as I progressed in throughout my 20s, I started to focus a little bit more on my career and serious relationships. And I was always very ambitious and always did very well from a career standpoint, from an earning standpoint. But I shifted a lot of my focus off doing the things I enjoy and focusing a lot on money. And that's at the point where a lot of stress started to come up. I was developing, I was creating lots of debt, lots of stress, lots of work stress. I was traveling around the country for work, and things seemed to be going well, but I started to put on more and more weight. So throughout my 20s, I just packed on the pounds. By the time I turned 30, I think I was around 245 or something like that. And I started to experience what I just thought was aging, right? I was getting older. I was almost 30, and starting to feel aches and pains. It took me longer to recover. In the mornings, it took me forever to get going and get up. Like I was just feeling old. And I was like, oh, well, that's normal, right? That's just part of getting old, right? Just you hear people say these things all the time. And then through my 30s, I was doing really good in my career, earning a lot of money, doing well. I, you know, bought a boat, had a great relationship with the woman who's now my wife, Sarah, and we were having tons of fun. Eating and drinking all the time. We're out boating. We're going on vacations. Like just living our life up, right? Like I was always waking up hungover. Every weekend was a party, and I kept putting on more weight, kept feeling like more shitty, and started to stuff my emotions, stuff my stress with food and alcohol. And a lot of us do that. A lot of us do that. And that's how food addictions start. That's how other addictions start, even alcohol. So I was doing that. Every weekend was a party. I couldn't wait to have my first drink on Friday. And, you know, even Sunday, I was still drinking and eating everything I want. I was ordering in hoagies and wings and all sorts of stuff, right? And so my health was just going to crap. And I was feeling more like shit, and I was feeling more pain. I hadn't been to a doctor in a while, and I went to see a doctor in my early 30s, and I remember him basically saying, like, I have too much weight on my body fat percentage is too high, I need to move more and eat less, I need to stop eating meat and fat, and I should be eating more vegetables and fruits and stuff like that. And it was kind of almost like a wake-up call. And part of me wanted to tell this doctor to go F himself. And, you know, he was with me for a couple minutes and basically said all this and then left. And I had never met him before. And I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. But I agreed with him. Like, I need to get my health in order. So I need to start moving more and eating less. And so I started to try to do that, right? I started to eat more vegetables, right? I started to eat a lot more vegetables and eat less fat, eat less meat, eat less, you know, don't eat fried foods and stuff like that. And I tried, and I was trying to eat less calories. I was counting all my calories. I was trying to work out more, but here's the problem. None of it worked. Like, I would count my calories, and if I could eat under 2,000 calories a day, I would lose weight. But I was always hangry, right? I was always very hungry. I always felt a lack of energy. So I was kind of on the yo-yo diet type program where I would count calories, reduce calories, lose weight, start kind of feel a little bit better, but ultimately I would fail because I was hungry, I was craving carbs, I was craving just to eat, I didn't want to work out, I had no energy. So it's at that point where I started to kind of have a wake-up call, and I remember saying to myself, luckily I've always been a stubborn person, and I remember saying, you know, what is this message that this doctor is giving to me? Why is meat bad? So why is it that I'm struggling so much? Why do I have to count calories and watch what I eat? Like, it just doesn't seem natural. It doesn't seem right to the natural world, right? Like, animals are not counting their calories or controlling what they eat or how much they eat. So there needs to be more to it. So I really started to explore the topic, right? Nutrition and diet and even exercise. And I wanted to understand what was going on. So I started Googling nutrition and diet, and, you know, I'm learning about all these different diets, and I'm like, well, these different diets are just, you know, they're just kind of concepts that people created. Like, I wanted to get to the nuts and bolts of what is the proper way to eat, because it just didn't feel right what I was trying to do. It didn't feel right to my body didn't feel right, it wasn't working. And clearly, when you look out in the population, everybody is trying diets and controlling what they eat, and there's got to be more to it because everybody's failing, right? Obviously there's an epidemic with obesity and heart disease and diabetes and stuff like that, and so I started to go down the rabbit hole, right? I started with like the bare bones basics of reading about like carbs and protein and fat and how they're used by the body, and I was going down this rabbit hole and starting to create an awareness of nutrition and health in the human body and start to have a basic understanding from that perspective first. And then it led me to researching and finding things that really made sense to me, right? Like, not just the name of a diet and what is that and like, let's explore that, but like really understanding the mechanisms, why and how things work as it relates to nutrition in the human body. And it led me to the paleo world. I was kind of blown away because it just made so much sense. It was like common sense. And so some of the first couple experts that I found was Mark Sisson with his Primal Blueprint, Rob Wolf, Lauren Cordain. All these folks started to come to my attention. I started reading their books. I started researching them, listening to videos they had out there, and everything made perfect sense. And I immediately started to implement it, right? And it was really like this whole foods based diet, like good quality meats, red meat, chicken, pork, fish, good fats, you know, good healthy fats like omega-3 fatty acids and the natural fat that you find on meat or in fish, avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil, stuff like that. And it really, the concept was pretty simple, right? Just whole food-based diet, stuff that's not processed. So we're not eating grains, we're not eating bread, right? These things are all heavily processed to create what they are. And so they're not natural to the body. So it made a ton of sense to me. And I started to utilize it and had tremendous results. I was losing weight and feeling good. But there was still an issue. There was still a problem. So I was in my early 30s at this point in time, and I was around 250 pounds, I believe. And so I was losing weight all the way down to like 230, something like that, and feeling pretty good. But the problem was I couldn't stick with it. I couldn't stick with it because I had these strong cravings and these urges. I was still having a hard time getting away from drinking alcohol. Every weekend I would still drink alcohol. And when I drank the alcohol, I would just eat shit because I didn't care. It was like my inhibitions went away and I just would eat whatever I want. But then during the week, I would eat really clean and tell myself that was okay. But it really wasn't. I was still doing damage to my body. And I couldn't get past that. Like, it made sense to me to eat this whole foods based diet, and I wasn't counting calories or anything like that. But I still felt myself hungry all the time. I felt addicted to food, and a lot of times it was still carbs. So kind of like the calorie in, calorie out whole thing, creating a calorie deficit. It was better than that, right? It was totally better than that. I felt more fulfilled in eating. And I wasn't counting calories, but I still had those cravings and those urges, and I still felt myself overeating at times. And then a lot of times I was giving in and eating the stuff that I shouldn't have been eating. So fast forward to basically right around my mid-30s, and I had continued to research nutrition and the paleo way of eating, and I started to find the whole keto idea of eating, and that was super intriguing to me because it was very closely related to the paleo style of nutrition. But at this point, I had lots of things going on in my career. I was stuffing my stress and emotions with food. I was really living a great life in so many different parts of my life. I had like a great relationship with my wife, and we had gotten married, and we were traveling and having fun. My career was going really well. I had switched some different jobs, but just, still doing well, earning good money and stuff like that. But my health, my wellness, I just couldn't keep up with it from a nutritional perspective. It was so hard to stick to any sort of plan or way of eating. And so the funny thing was, I was kind of yo-yoing all over the place with how I ate. And I was eating whole foods all the time, but I was still including shit food. I was still drinking way too much alcohol. So it was like this crazy yo-yo effect going on. And other times I would completely fall off the wagon and do whatever I wanted for months on end. And where I found myself was even worse than where I started. The lowest point I came to was, it was around 2018, 2019. I was 265 pounds, the heaviest I had ever been. I had, my mindset was kind of compulsive and crazy and all over the place. And there was a lot of things going right in my life, but my health was just out of control. And I just couldn't attribute what was happening to aging and just a normal part of aging. It just didn't make sense to me. Luckily, I had continued my research. I was like passionate about health and wellness and nutrition, but I just wasn't, walking the walk, right? Like I was understanding it, but I couldn't implement it. And so there's a couple things that happened at that point in time. It was right around almost 2019. It was in 2018, I learned about fasting, intermittent fasting. I found Dr. Jason Fung is an expert on fasting. He's a kidney doctor. He's a specialist. He specializes in diabetes. And he was getting people to lose weight and get off medications and reverse their diabetes with fasting protocols, intermittent fasting, where you essentially don't eat for a majority of the day, and then you have a window where you eat. And there's all sorts of different ways you could structure that. And he was doing that successfully with a lot of his clients. And I was super intrigued about it, but kind of scared because I never really intentionally didn't eat, right? I would eat whenever I was hungry or whenever I felt hungry. So I continued researching fasting. I watched all Dr. Fung's seminars and videos, and I read his books. He's got a few books out. He's got even newer books out on cancer and other things, which are phenomenal reads. But I got his book, The Guide to Intermittent Fasting, and again, it was eye-opening. It made perfect sense. Like, our ancestors didn't eat all the time. Our ancestors did not eat 3, 4, 5, 6 meals a day. They didn't sit around snacking. Like, they would eat when they had food, and when they didn't, they were fasting. And I learned about all the health benefits of fasting, and there's tremendous health benefits in fasting and plenty of research to back it up. And I'm going to actually do a video on fasting itself here in the near future. It's going to be just a little teaser. It's going to be one of the superpowers. I have the superpower video series I'm doing. It's going to be one of the superpowers because fasting is phenomenal for your health, your mindset, your well-being, and I've had tremendous benefits from utilizing it, and I still utilize it to this day. But I started to implement the intermittent fasting, and I had tremendous results. In fact, I can attribute a majority of my weight loss, the 40 pounds, which I lost in 2019, to intermittent fasting on a daily basis with some prolonged fasting where I would go, 2, 3, 4 days of just drinking water and coffee without eating at all. And it may sound a little crazy. If you've never heard of fasting, then it sounds like a wild concept. But all I ask is that you keep an open mind, do some research, look up Dr. Jason Fung, learn about the health benefits of fasting, and understand that our ancestors who were around for millions of years, they fasted. It was a normal part of their life. What is abnormal is for us to eat thinking that we need a breakfast, lunch, dinner, and meals in between. That's just concepts that is more of modern day society. It was not normal to eat like that back then. And that's one of the problems with chronic disease, why we have so much of this inflammation and different diseases that manifest as a result. But intermittent fasting was one of the key tools that I used to transform my life. Now, on top of that, I shifted more from that paleo style of eating to a keto carnivore style of eating. And if you're wondering what that is, if you're not familiar with that, then eating a keto style diet or even a carnivore style diet, which are very similar forms of low carb diets, essentially is what they are. Keto diet, the carnivore diet, omnicarnivores, whatever, there's all these different names and labels. They're really just all forms of low carb diets. I'm not huge on labels and categorizing things and getting all tribal about them. I'm not dogmatic in any way, shape, or form. But essentially, it's low carb eating. Like a carnivore diet's a very low carb style of eating. A keto diet is a low carb style of eating as well, but typically has more carbs because you're including vegetables and stuff like that. Whereas a carnivore diet, you're typically not eating any vegetables whatsoever. And in some carnivore practitioners don't eat any dairy. They just eat straight up meat, organ meats, stuff like that. So the point was, I shifted from this paleo way of eating to focusing more on low carb, eating less and less carbs. So I eliminated a majority of the fruits and the vegetables. And where I really started to have a tremendous impact is when I went more carnivore-ish in my journey. So that's where I had my tremendous success. And that's where I've reversed all these diseases like gout, which I was plagued with, even eating paleo, even eating a keto style. But one of the things I noticed was when I ate more vegetables, I had more reoccurrence of gout. And that may seem crazy to some people who are familiar with gout and they're told to eat less meat, eat more vegetables. And I'm telling you right now, it did not work for me. I upped my meat, upped my organ meats too, like liver and heart and pancreas and stuff like that. I upped my meat. I eliminated most vegetables. I still eat some vegetables. Like, I'm not dogmatic about it. I wouldn't consider myself like 100% carnivore. But my primary source of calories of energy is meats, red meat and fat, lots of fat. I'm eating fat from the animal. I'm eating beef tallow. I'm eating suet. I'm eating fatty fish. I'm eating avocado oil, coconut oil. I try to stick with animal fats, a lot of butter. I eat a lot of grass-fed butter, ghee. I stick with a lot of animal fats. When I made that shift, including intermittent fasting, shifting my diet from more of a paleo diet to more of that keto carnivore-ish diet, I had tremendous results. And so I felt like over the course of time, I really evolved my understanding of nutrition, how it affected my health. And I found that there was nothing healthier than keeping my carbs exceptionally low, fasting just about all the time. And so my way of intermittent fasting is I typically eat between maybe 4 o'clock to 7, 8 o'clock, maybe even 9 o'clock at times in the evening. And then the rest of the time I'm fasting. Right when you're sleeping, you're fasting because you're not eating. So, I might sleep 6, 7, 8 hours a night. I'm fasting. I wake up, I'll have some coffee, maybe put a little bit of butter in it, maybe a little bit of goat milk at time, but typically I'm just having water and coffee throughout the day. I don't break my fast until late afternoon, most of the time. And then there's other days where I'll go on a straight up long-term fast. I'll go 2, 3, 4 days, and I always feel amazing. I always drink lots of water. I add electrolytes, potassium, magnesium. I'll add a little bit of zinc. I add a little bit of real salt. Redmond's real salt is what I use just to keep my electrolytes up. And that's what I do. That's how I've reversed disease. That's how I've gone to feeling younger, vibrant, healthier, full of life, stronger. I'm stronger in the gym. I'm stronger in jiu-jitsu. I'm faster. I sleep better. I mean, my whole life is transformed. I'm eating lots of meat. I eat some vegetables, and I also avoid vegetables that contain oxalates. So I didn't really get into why I eat less vegetables. A lot of vegetables are full of plant toxins, anti-nutrients. Plants don't want to be eaten just as much as animals don't want to be eaten, right? Animals can run from us, use their camouflage to evade us. Plants are stuck in space. They can't move. So they create their own chemical warfare inside their bodies. So when animals or bugs or humans come along and eat them, it wreaks havoc in your body. That's where a lot of food allergies come from, like gluten, oxalates. There's all sorts of different plant toxins because plants don't want to be eaten, right? And animals like cows and deer and sheep, they're ruminant animals. They have multiple stomach chambers and their digestive system is super long because that's to deal with these plant toxins. We don't have that. We're not really designed to eat tons of vegetables and plants. So I noticed a huge improvement in my overall health by removing a majority of vegetables, especially the offenders that contain lots of oxalate, because oxalate has been attributed to gout flare-ups and gout issues. And I could say for a fact, I used to eat a lot of spinach and stuff like that, and I don't eat that anymore at all. So my vegetables are pretty simple, like romaine lettuce. You can look up the oxalate content of different vegetables, and I try to consume low oxalate containing vegetables. So occasionally I'll eat some fruits. I mean, a majority of fruits nowadays are all, genetically modified. They're nothing compared to what they were in nature, right? Big, crazy, juicy apples and bananas. They're like mutants of modern day agriculture. They have more sugar. They're sweeter. They're bigger. They're not even natural to the natural world anymore. If you look up what a banana looked like in the wild, or a watermelon, or any fruit, it's completely different than what they sell in grocery stores today. So I don't eat a lot of fruit at all. I eat a lot of meat. I get my organ meats in because they are like superfoods. They're going to contain all the minerals and the vitamins and everything, all the nutrients that you need. I eat a lot of fat. So a lot of protein and fat in my life is phenomenal, and I love it. So that's pretty much it. My routine is lots of fasting, intermittent fasting with occasional prolonged fasting. I drink water throughout the day. I drink coffee. I eat a lot of meat. I do eat dairy. I do eat some dairy. I don't drink regular milk or anything like that. I drink goat's milk. We usually get like aged cheeses and stuff like that. Butter, ghee. I use all that stuff. I love it. And I eat when I'm hungry. I don't count calories or any of that. The whole calorie counting thing, I think that's been disproven many times. Your body is an amazing machine. It doesn't need you to try to control it, right? You have this metabolic system and all of these hormones in your body that control hunger, that can control satiety, right? So you don't need to control how much you're eating and counting it. It's really just a big myth. And there's a lot of people still believe in the whole calorie in, calorie out. I'll tell you what, go listen to Dr. Jason Fung, listen to Dr. Robert Saives, Dr. Ken Berry. These guys are all amazing progressive doctors. So they're all, definitely go check them out, because they'll explain to you the whole calorie in, calorie out thing is really just a farce. Really, it's not backed in any sort of legitimate science. The body does not need you to count anything, right? If you're feeding it natural foods like real meats and maybe some vegetables and water, then your body's going to do the rest for you. Now, if you're pounding carbs, if you're pounding processed crap, industrial seed oils, all the sugar and stuff like that, then your hormone system goes out of whack, and that's why you overeat. When people become obese, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of inflammation. It's a symptom of nutritional deficiency. So it's not because you're just eating too much. There's so much more at play with your hormones. Your hormones control hunger and satiety. So you don't need to control it. Now, your metabolic health will suffer. It takes a lot of people, it takes time to break it down. 20s, 30s, it takes decades. Eventually you develop things like diabetes. Insulin's another hormone that controls what happens with the sugar in your blood, and it's a pro-growth hormone, right? So there's all sorts of hormones at work. What I'm saying is, if you eat the right foods, you make the right choices, you make the right lifestyle decisions, then like me, you're going to experience improvements in your metabolic health. It might happen quickly, it might take a while. It just depends on your overall metabolic health. Even where I'm at today, I know I could lose, another 20, 25 pounds and get to an even a lower body fat percentage and feel even better. But I've been kind of at the same weight for the past year. The point is, my metabolic health might take a while to catch up and then continue to improve. And Dr. Berry talks about this in his videos, because people really measure their success a lot of times just based on weight. And so that's one of the things I understand, and I'm not worried about it. Like, I know there's some more weight I could drop, but I'm feeling phenomenal. I'm feeling great. I'm in the right mindset. I'm doing the right things. And I know as my metabolic health improves more and more, life's going to be better, right? I'm going to drop some of that additional weight. My life will continue to improve, right? And age has nothing to do with it. All right, well, I appreciate you keeping up with me this far. One other thing I do want to mention is I did start working with a functional medicine doctor several years ago, and we did tons of blood work, and it was kind of at the height of my inflammatory stage when I was like 265 pounds and I had gout all the time and lots of aches and pains and felt like complete crap. And I saw all of my inflammatory markers, my high blood pressure, high triglycerides, everything was just out of whack, right? And so I started to work with a functional medicine doctor who didn't push any drugs or anything on me whatsoever. And since then, she has retired, and I have an appointment with the doctor who took over her practice, who is also an MD and a functional medicine practitioner, and he's awesome. My wife's already seen him. Very educated, incredible doctor who's completely in line with all of the stuff that I'm talking about here today. And I'm looking forward to meeting him, because I haven't had my blood work in several years now, and I know I've made these tremendous improvements, especially the last couple of years. So I'm looking forward to looking at all that blood work again, right? I've had my blood pressure taking and some other things in the last couple of years, but I haven't had that full panel of blood work and looking at all those inflammatory markers, looking at the triglycerides, looking at the fasting insulin and the C-peptide and all that good stuff, right? So I'll be doing that in the next couple months with him, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you folks so you could see just the improvements in all those markers. And perhaps there's some areas where I'll still need to improve, right? I'm not perfect. I still make mistakes. I still get a little loose with my diet from time to time, such as over the holidays. I was just down in Aruba with my wife, and I was having a little more alcohol than normal, eating some things I normally don't eat. And one other thing I want to point out about that is, like I said, I'm not perfect. And the one thing that I don't do when I do get a little loosey-goosey with things is I don't beat myself up about it. I don't dwell on it. I embrace it. I empower myself and embrace it and accept it and acknowledge it. I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm doing it. And I'm not going to make a big deal about it, because one thing I could tell you, there's a lot of people who get very worked up about doing the right thing, and they have some really good results and they start to feel good, and then maybe something happens, they feel a little bit of stress, they have some sort of emotional event, and they eat their emotions away with something they normally don't eat, and then they beat the shit out of themselves about it. That is one of the worst things you could do. That is one of the worst things you could do, because your mindset and the way you think about yourself and your self-talk have a tremendous impact on your body, your immune system, how you feel, and even inflammation. So the last thing you want to do is beat yourself up. So I'm just putting that out there because I know a lot of people do it. But if you are in a stressful state because you're beating yourself up because you feel bad about eating something you shouldn't eat, or eating more than you wanted to eat, or whatever it is, then you are causing stress internally, and all of the systems of the body work together. And if you're creating stress, your body thinks that you're running from a tiger, but really you're just beating yourself up because you ate a batch of cookies. And I could tell you right now, when you cause that stress hormones are released, your immune system is compromised, your digestion is compromised, you can provoke inflammation. So don't do that. And I talk about stuff like this in some of my other videos on neuroscience and mindset and self-talk and stuff like that. So you need to love yourself. You need to be kind to yourself, compassionate with yourself. And when you do become a little loosey-goosey in your diet, do not beat yourself up, embrace it, acknowledge it, and you know what the right thing to do is. So there's always tomorrow, right? So that's pretty much all I have to share for today. I'm going to do lots of videos on nutrition and health and different aspects of it. This is really just kind of an overview of my journey. There's a lot that I left out too, but I really wanted to try to consolidate it and summarize it in a way that makes sense to you, so you can understand where I'm coming from, who I am, the challenges I've been faced with, and where I'm at now. And hopefully you could take some value and insight from this, and you too can become an ambassador of your health and body, mind, and spirit. Nutrition is going to be a huge part of that. Lifestyle choices are going to be a huge part of that. And one other thing I forgot to mention is during my transformation over the last few years, when I started to do a lot of fasting, and I started to eat more of that keto carnivore style of eating, lots of fat and protein, I also stopped drinking alcohol for several months, and I completely wiped that out. Now, I do drink alcohol still, but I don't drink at the frequency I used to. I used to drink every single weekend, and I would get blackout drunk pretty much. I don't do that anymore. I appreciate alcohol. I mostly drink some red wine, maybe some bourbon here and there. I pretty much steer clear from beer. But I've gotten control over that, and I had to do a lot with my mindset and behaviors and stuff like that to really get control of that, because that could be addictive. Alcohol could be addictive, even if you think you have control of it. If you cannot wait just to get that drink in you on Friday after work, and you end up drinking the whole weekend, that could still be a problem, right? You may not be considered an alcoholic, but you could still be doing significant damage to your body, and it could be some sort of addiction that you have to it, and you're using it maybe to self-medicate, to stuff your emotions, your stress, whatever. I still drink alcohol. I enjoy a good glass of wine, a good glass of bourbon. I don't do it all the time. It's rare that I get like completely drunk or anything like that. I just don't drink like I used to. And I know alcohol is really just a poison, but I do enjoy it. I enjoy it pretty much in a social way. I don't just sit around and drink at home at all. It's just a social thing for me, and I enjoy it, and I still do it, but not a lot, not every weekend. And I'll go weeks, months without having a drink. So I just want to throw that out there, because I know alcohol is a big part of culture and society and people's lives. So I forgot to mention that, but that's about it. I'm going to be talking more about this stuff. So if you're finding value from this video, then stick around. This whole podcast is about helping empower you to change your lifestyle and become more of an ambassador of your life in body, mind, and spirit, right? So the body is going to be like your nutrition, your activity, your exercise. Your mind, man, mind is such a big part of it that's often overlooked, and I've mentioned it a few times in this video, but the mind, the mindfulness, your perspectives, your behaviors, your belief systems, your self-talk, there's so much to go into in that, and I've done a lot of videos on that. And then your spirit, right? Your belief systems, your relationships with other, your relationship in the universe, with the world and nature and stuff like that. And so I like to hit all those pillars of living what I call an exceptional life. Happiness, health, wealth, wellness, right? If you're hitting all those pillars, then you too can live an exceptional life. So I'll stop there. If you have any questions, let me know. And don't forget to be exceptional. All right.